Ladies and gentlemen, I was going to put this video in as part of other videos, but this subject really deserves its own video. One of the things that the Kremlinoids and Putin's Z-bots have been perpetrating, of course, one of the famous lies, of course, is about somehow there being a United States WMD program to develop bioweapons that, instead of being located sensibly enough in a place like Area 51 or out in the middle of Alaska or anywhere on the 1/3 of U.S. territory that is literally laying fallow, uninhabited, and owned by the federal government, used for nothing, instead of putting it there, that somehow we put up to 52 labs in Ukraine. This, in order for propaganda to be plausible, it has to make sense. An individual actor may commit a crime like the Columbine killers or the homeless black supremacists throwing Asian people in front of trains in New York or whatever, that are senseless, that don't have a motive. But nation states don't do that. Nation states are rational. Premeditation and economic calculations are the order of the day. The bioweapon labs make no sense. It's senseless. And first of all, but let's assume for some reason, despite all common sense, that the Ukrainian government and people, well, it would be the government, not the people, agreed to put their population at an extraordinarily high risk by developing illegal weapons of mass destruction, bioweapons, that could easily be targeted by Russia's nuclear weapons and perhaps even NATO's nuclear weapons as well at the same time, putting their population at risk just so that Americans would have a lesser risk. America has plenty of wild spaces and it's a bigger country, and overall America has a lesser population density than Europe. If you're going to build a secret weapon, be it a UFO or the antimatter powered Aurora spy plane or anything else, you'd make it here. If they took that risk for us, doesn't that make them an ally of the United States? And aren't we even more obliged to protect them than we are now? Especially since we stole $2 trillion worth of their nuclear weapons away from them and didn't pay them and just gave the nukes and the planes back to Russia for free. The same ones that are now, those same planes are now being used to bomb Ukraine. How surreal. So, the other factors, of course, are Russian behavior itself. Now, of course, we all know that Solovyev and Ms. Pottymouth Simonova and all them, of course, are putting out propaganda, and there's even a few very gullible, very naive American news outlets that are doing the same about the bioweapons labs and asking, well, is it true? That's a legitimate question. Well, did they? It's legitimate, but giving any serious credence to it beyond that isn't. First of all, in Russia, despite provoking Ukraine, despite being at war with Ukraine, Russia continues to have large crowds and rallies supporting Putin. If your opponent has 52 bioweapons labs and bioweapons, large crowds, and especially an opponent that uses drones, large crowds would be a great place to deploy said drones. Anything, if you can take an object the size of this battery and drop it in the middle of a crowd, and this thing, let's say, has zombie apocalypse in it, and it sprays, say, I don't know, maybe a fragile glass test tube that falls, choom, you've wiped out 1 million people. If you have bioweapons labs, you could literally wipe out a city with a drone. Why would you have large crowds? It's too tempting of a target. Russia's also distributed no gas masks to their population. They've distributed no general purpose antivirals or antibiotic stashes to their population. In fact, they're running out of these drugs, and they've made no effort to make them on their own. Russia has also distributed no countermeasures to their military. There's no atropine. To this day, even on the front, the Wagner soldiers and other Russian soldiers have no bioweapons countermeasures. Now, it's understandable for them to maybe run out of ammo, or, there's some reports that some of the newer recruits are being given shovels instead of AKs because they're running out of guns. That's from Ukraine. I don't know. Some of the Russian POWs may be telling the Ukrainians this. I'm not sure. You can take that for what it's worth. But a gas mask isn't something that you would reuse. And Russia does have equipment and doctrines that are designed to fight in chemical, biological, nuclear environments. I mean, they do have the capacity to outfit their military with that. They have old Soviet stuff in storage that they haven't distributed to that. So that indicates to me that in their mind, their opponents don't have this capacity, because you never know. I mean, and the other thing, of course, is the war itself is kind of an argument against the bioweapons. Why would you pick a fight with an opponent that has weapons of mass destruction of any kind? Okay, maybe Ukraine gave up their nukes, but a bioweapon can wipe out a city too. The COVID-19 bioweapon from Wuhan wiped out 1 million Americans. That was just done to change an election, not even to take over a country. I mean, and the opportunities for asymmetric warfare that bioweapons pose, basically makes the relative size of both countries fighting irrelevant. I mean, really? The only thing that happens is the only thing you need is one Ukrainian needs to get something the size of this battery, maybe a glass test tube, into Moscow and just throw it on the ground and go home. And if they're vaccinated against whatever it is that they throw onto the ground, they don't even have to rush. They could just sit there, pitch it out of a window, or pitch it into or just have a drone drop some powder into a river, and boom, bye-bye Moscow. Why is everybody a zombie? Or whatever the germ is. It doesn't make sense to start a war with a country that has this capacity. And Ukraine has made no threats to use them. Why doesn't Ukraine say, hey, yeah, you're right, we have these bioweapons labs, and we've got 100 guys scattered throughout Russia that have these, and that'll do that as soon as I, Zelensky, wave both middle fingers into the air and count to 3, your cities are gone, now get out of my country. Why doesn't he use that as a deterrent? Why doesn't he invoke the mutually assured destruction doctrine? If you have the weapons, why would you not use them? Heck, personally, I'm not as nice as Zelensky. I would be taking those new Wilhelm missiles they're building with the conventional bombs. That's kind of like their version of an ATACMS. I'd take half the conventional explosives out and go to Chernobyl and put some of that nuclear waste in there. And, dirty bomb's the easiest kind of nuke to make. I mean, if I had a radiation suit in a garage, I could literally make one in a month. Okay, not that I have any interest in doing so. I'm just scientifically trained. I have some lab experience. They're easy to make. Ukraine doesn't even have those. And the Ukrainian people were happy. Getting rid of the nukes was a popular decision at the time in the Ukrainian population. Russia isn't behaving like Ukraine has bioweapons or any weapons of mass destruction. They're just saying that Ukraine has bioweapons and weapons of mass destruction. Of course, this means they're lying. You can pretty much tell when Russia's lying. Question one, is Russia talking? Answer, yes. Okay, then they're lying. It's a very simple Venn diagram. Now, Ukraine does have some defensive labs. Russia itself has large stashes of their own bioweapons. Russia itself has large stashes of nuclear weapons. And yes, Ukraine and many other European countries, all the NATO countries, have labs that are designed to test, diagnose, treat, and identify biological weapons vectors that are used against thousands or even maybe hundreds of thousands of people at once. They have the capacity to counter and treat that and to mitigate such attacks. And there are defensive labs for that. But those defensive labs aren't really a military deterrent. So, and again, and this is not consistent with other weapons development programs in the USA. Whether you look at any conspiracy, even other things listed as conspiracy, like the CIA testing LSD on people, or MK Ultra, or the syphilis experiments involving black people, or the Aurora spy plane, or the U-2 spy plane development, or the stealth bomber development, or, spy satellite launches, anything. All that stuff has one thing in common. Most of it is based within the United States, specifically within the 48 states on the continents. Most of those facilities are all based in America. America doesn't do classified research or secret weapon research or illegal weapon research in smaller third world countries. You might say, well, what about Fauci and COVID-19? Again, Fauci is an isolated individual that was hell-bent on gain-of-function research. But China is entirely the opposite of Ukraine. China is a large superpower, a police state that presumably that is assumed, rightly or wrongly, to be a peer of the United States. And Fauci initially, even with that COVID-19, initially tried to do the gain-of-function research in the United States before he was denied. That speaks volumes. Ukraine is not the kind of place that a country that builds almost everything made in America would use. And if you are going to foreign countries to do research, not necessarily build weapons, just to do research, a place like China, well, that kind of means that you don't like smaller, poorer countries like Ukraine. I mean, the United States is kind of beholden to China. The CCP and the DNC, after all, are one organization. They're kind of essentially one country anyway, just without the population's permission. Ukraine and the United States are not. So, again, the crime itself doesn't make sense. There's no motive for it. There's no means to do so. And the opportunity to make secret or illegal weapons is already here in America. They could build it here. And their chances of getting caught would be a lot less. After all, Ukraine's corrupt. Spies are everywhere. Why would you build a secret weapon in a country that is overrun with Russian spies? Infiltrated to the core almost. China's a police state. If you have a secret and you and China want to keep it, China can probably keep it if they want to. Ukraine, not so much. When you have corruption and poverty like that, that's a chaotic environment, which is the last thing you need when you're building a secret or an illegal weapon. Therefore, the bioweapons lab thing should be thoroughly debunked just based on reasoning and common sense. This is White Lightning 777, signing out.